Match day 2 of the CAF Champions League is in the books, and for the most part, it was a snooze fest. But nonetheless, we're going to recap all of this weekend's action after the break on this episode of the African Five-A-Side podcast. Welcome to another episode of the African Football Roundup on the African Five-A-Side podcast. I'm your host, Mamelodi Sundowns. This podcast is brought to you by africasaCountry.com. I did want to plug a piece that I have up on africasaCountry.com. It's called Taking a Stand, and it's about the CAF Champions League final of last year, where we sort of embedded with the Ahly Ultras and told their story as they're trying to find homes away from home, and they're doing that during the away match days of the African Champions League. So if that interests you at all, I'm going to have the link in the description, and I'm also going to link the short documentary that we produced alongside the article in the description as well. So far, I got some very good feedback, so if you haven't watched it yet, this is just one final reminder to do that, and then after that, we're going to move on from Taking a Stand. So if you haven't watched it yet, please go do that and go leave your feedback on the Africa as a Country YouTube page or, on any of our social media accounts. So, as mentioned, this weekend's slate of matches wasn't the most exciting in my opinion. And during the mailbag episode last week, I think one of the viewers was saying that the CAF Champions League is getting very predictable. It's the same teams every single year that are in the Final Four. Most of the matches finished 0-0 and 1-0. And this was sort of like a self-fulfilling prophecy because, this weekend, my goodness, most of the matches were, in my opinion, quite boring. Very cautiously played by all kinds of teams. And I was thinking, why was that? Why was that the case? I think there's a few different things. First of all, I think we're in the middle of the group stages. And usually, if teams are going to take chances, I think it's usually at the beginning of the group stages when they still have time to experiment, or at the end of the group stages where maybe they're more desperate for a positive result. Whereas in the middle, maybe they're a little more risk averse. Second is the distance traveled for these matches was absolutely crazy. Look at the slate of matches we had. The first one, Esperance Tunis versus Sagrada Esperança, 5,100 kilometers traveled by the visiting team. Orlando Pirates versus Ahly, 6,300 kilometers traveled by Ahly. Raja Casablanca against Maniema Union, 4,900 kilometers. The lowest distance covered in total by a visiting side was CR Belouizdad from Algeria against Stade d'Abidjan. They only traveled 3,600 kilometers. Young Africans traveled 6,300 kilometers to Algiers. Mamelodi Sundowns traveled 7,600 kilometers to Rabat. That was the longest trip from Pretoria to Rabat. Pyramids went from Cairo to Bamako to play against Djoliba, 4,400 kilometers. And finally, Hilal hosted Mazembe, who traveled 4,200 kilometers from Kinshasa to Nouakchott in Mauritania, where Hilal are playing their matches. So again, the shortest distance is a 4 to 5 hour flight, Algiers to Abidjan. I did that trip for the AFCON at the beginning of the year. It's a long trip. So for me, it's not a shock that the only visiting team to actually get a victory in the second match day was CR Belouizdad, who traveled the shortest amount of kilometers, only 3,600. And also, it wasn't really a big shock to me that many of the matches were sort of closed off and played in a risk-averse style. Because if you're fatigued, if you're tired, and many of these matches, about half of them were also played in the middle of the afternoon or in the afternoon with superior than 30 degrees Celsius weather conditions. In that case, the energy levels are going to drop. When the energy levels drop, the games are going to be less dynamic. They're going to be less end-to-end. And as a result, you get the kind of results that you get. So I would say, don't discount distance. Don't discount fatigue. Again, we're in the middle of the group stages as well. Timing of the matches didn't help. Temperatures didn't help. But for me, it's not a surprise too that the North African matches that were played where it's winter in North Africa at the moment, and the night matches as well, the matches that were played at night were the most exciting matches. Like El Hilal Mazembe was a very exciting match. MC of Algiers versus Young Africans was exciting. These are the kinds of matches I thought that were the best matches. And so temperatures were a little bit lower, and I think that sort of explains it. That's my preliminary theory. Let me know what you guys think. But let's break these matches down one by one. The first match took place on Friday evening. Sagrada Esperança of Angola hosted Esperance. And we mentioned that Sagrada Esperança is not from Luanda, the capital, but they played the matches in Luanda, in the capital of Angola, and this was a theme throughout the match day. So the team is from Dundo. They're not from, which is the northeast corner of Angola, and Luanda is sort of along the western, southern western coast of Angola. And so there was an empty November of the 11th stadium. And again, this was a little bit of a theme in the second match day as well. Um, my immediate thoughts after just sitting back watching, I was just focusing on the match. I wasn't looking at the lineups. I wasn't thinking about tactics. I was just watching the teams play football, and immediately I thought, man, these two teams are not on the same level. I mean, overall, you have 40 to 60% possession and 14 to 6 shots, both in favor of Esperance Tunis. At times, Sagrada Esperança almost seemed like an amateur side, and I feel bad saying this. I mean, there were times where I was watching a defender, a left back, instead of clearing the ball up to his striker, you know that thing you do where your plant foot, as you're getting ready to strike the ball, your plant foot touches the ball and it takes it a little bit too far wide, and then you try to kick it up and you just shank it out of bounds. I watched them do that. I've watched, some shots that, landed closer to the corner flag than to the goalposts. Um, some very dangerous tackles as well, like flying two-footed tackles that were easily be called a red card in Europe, but in Africa for some reason, sometimes they barely get a yellow. But it just adds to the amateurish look of the game. And to be fair, even Hussam Tka from Esperance Tunis had one of those tackles, but there was three or four from Sagrada Esperança. So yeah, I was expecting them to be more proactive in terms of holding on to possession of the ball. I was expecting them to have chances of goal scoring. They had no real goal scoring chances. And Esperance completely dominated, and they were still disappointed at the end of the match. But me personally, I thought they played well. But they played good football, good combination play. But they're just missing some quality in the right positions. They need a center half, as we mentioned in the preview. Hamza Jalasi is not a solution. It was good to get Mohamed Amin Tougai back, the Algerian center half, but they need somebody beside him since Yassine Maria got an ACL injury. Abdurrahman Konate, who we talked up on this channel as a 19-year-old talented young Ivorian attacking midfielder, had a pretty poor match. Usually he sits, in that number 10 position in the hole behind the striker and does a good job of feeding the wings or feeding the striker. And I thought he just had an off day. I'm just going to draw it up to that. And then even the striker, Rodrigo Rodriguez, I thought was not clinical enough in front of goal. But Yusuf Belali on left wing, still a genius. I thought he was so good. He should have finished with at least 3 assists if Esperance players like Rodriguez, were a little bit sharper in front of goal. And then Hussam Tka as well. Very, very good match in midfield. For me, he was the man of the match alongside Belali. He did everything. Tackles, combination play, some of the passing was mind-blowing. He had a really good game. And I read that some Esperance fans wanted him to sort of deputize as a right back, but when he plays like that in central midfield, you have to play him there at central midfield. So anyways, yeah, to wrap it up, Esperance, they need, in my opinion, a defender urgently. This was for me, an encouraging performance. They showed that they could dominate away from home. Sagrada Esperança are a very weak side. I'm concluding this after 2 match days of watching them, but they need another central defender. Does that mean you can move one of the fullbacks like Ben Hamida inside, and play him alongside Tougai, and then bring in maybe Ayman bin Mohammed as a left back, a player that's had a lot of experience playing in this competition before, Tunisian Irish player, very attacking left back, good player. I think that could be a solution maybe until the winter, but in the winter, Esperance has to buy a defender. Uh, One final note, no victories in the last 4 away matches for Esperance. So despite the fact that they dominated, and I think this is why they were a little bit disappointed in themselves, they didn't get the victory. But still, this coach has only been in charge for 4 matches. He's undefeated so far, 2 victories and 2 draws. And they're sitting atop of Group A with, are they in Group A? I'm not sure actually. But they're sitting atop their group with 4 points. The next match that was played is Orlando Pirates versus Ahly, and this was a match that we were waiting on, that the entire continent was waiting on. Orlando Pirates set the stage with a beautiful victory in Algeria against CR Belouizdad. And the Ahly are defending champions, and they won their first match 4-2 against Stade d'Abidjan. So this was like a good test of seeing where is Orlando Pirates at, because we know that they're first in the PSL. We know, like, we feel the momentum, we feel the hype coming out of South Africa. But you want to test them against the best sides in Africa, and there's no better side in Africa than Al Ahly. This was one of those 2 p.m. matches in 34-degree heat at Orlando Stadium. By the way, Orlando Stadium was sold out on paper. When I watched the game, I saw some empty parts of the stadium, but I think that's because the heat was beating down right on those seats. And I think people just didn't want to sit in that heat, maybe. But um, yeah, props to Bucks fans came out, filled up the stadium. I mean, that's the kind of momentum that you want in South African club football, which has never really lacked the means, never lacked the media attention, but sometimes, for some clubs, have people have struggled to fill up the stadiums. But I think everybody was happy in South Africa to see Orlando sell out the stadium, and so yeah, the match had as much hype as you wanted. My notes here, I wrote in the first parts of the match, Al Ahly looked comfortable. I have Talente Mbata and Mofokeng impressed me the most so far in the early stages, but then I noticed that Al Ahly were attacking Mofokeng on his first touch every single time. And here it should be mentioned that Tito, uh, Patrick Maswangani, the South African number 10 that's been, people are talking to him as a replacement for Temba Zwane, very good creative left-footed attacking midfielder. He was missing for Pirates, and so they were playing Mofokeng, who's usually on the left wing, in the number 10 position, and then they were playing Salang on their right, and I think it was Hoto on the left, if I'm not mistaken. So you have a wing back kind of, or a left-handed player that couldn't play as a fullback, as a left winger. Okay, and then you have Salang, who good player on the right wing, but instead of Nkota, maybe that was an interesting decision. You guys can let me know if you agreed with it or not. And Mofokeng, who's has that pace to attack you on the wings, he's in the number 10 position. And so for Al Ahly to scout Mofokeng and to attack him on his first touch every single time, I thought that was good. It shows you, the kind of resources that Al Ahly have. I think they know the player, They know he's not used to being in that position. And when you're playing in that position for the first time, I think because you're as a number 10, you're surrounded by defenders. You have, especially if you're facing towards the ball, you're not facing towards the opposition goal. I mean, you have defenders behind you, central defenders behind you. You have defensive midfielders over here. If you drift a little bit, you have fullbacks either way. So one of the greatest attributes you can have when you're playing that position is being aware, of your surroundings, scanning, like people like to always talk about scanning, knowing where your players are, knowing where the opposition is, knowing what you're going to do before you even have the ball. And so it's hard for a 20-year-old player to have that. And I don't think Mofokeng had that. And I think he did a great job of attacking him whenever he got close, making sure that he knows that, hey, there's somebody on your back, somebody on your back. And so I think they held him in check really until the 40th minute. And in the 40th minute, Orlando Pirates had two very good chances. And they both came from Mofokeng as well. Salang, sorry, in the 42nd minute, and then Mofokeng towards the end of the first half. But still, what I noticed in the first half overall is that Al Ahly weren't really dangerous at all, in my opinion, besides some set pieces. Um, Pirates' best chances came from long balls. And it's something that they did very well against CR Belouizdad is they hit that long ball to Makopa and they had Nkota and Mofokeng. If you watch, whenever they play a long ball to Makopa, you see those wide players making runs past him. They're expecting a flick on. And it worked in that first match in the CAF Champions League. It worked a little less well here, but you could see that there's that chemistry between Makopa and the wing players. Um, and so Orlando Pirates, they do play the long game very well. It's not like they don't play it well, but that's where their best chances came from. A few other notes I made about Al Ahly is that I wrote that the mechanics of their midfield are so difficult to defend against. When you watch them play in possession, so out of possession when they're defending, they'll have a double pivot of Marwan Atiyah, Egyptian national team midfielder, Akram Tawfiq, and then they have Imam Ashur. It's two banks of four. So those in the midfield, you have wingers on the wide area, and then you have the two central midfielders in the middle, and then it's like 4-4-2. So Imam Ashur will kick up with the striker and he'll do pressing that way. So they'll have two banks of four and two up top when they're pressing out of possession. And then in possession, I haven't really seen this so much, but their three midfielders almost play vertically like this, almost like a straight line. So you have Marwan Atiyah as the deep line playmaker, and he's like, I don't know who you can compare him to. Maybe like stylistically, maybe like a Pirlo or something like that. Somebody that likes to pick up the ball from defenders, get his head up, play long passes between the lines. He's very, very good passer. He can see the pitch very well. Akram Tawfiq is like that shuttling midfielder. He's the middle of the three. But he won't line up in a double pivot besides Atia so much. He'll go up the pitch. So he'll sit in like that. Like I said, it's almost like a vertical three, almost directly in front of him. And Imam Ashur is he's given so much freedom and so much liberty. Sometimes he'll be right behind the striker, or he'll move left and right and try to maybe draw in some of the fullbacks in those dead spaces between the center half and the fullback. So when they're in like that, I think it just messes with the opposition so much because they're so used to sitting back in a double pivot. For example, Pirates are with Mbata and I forget the name of number. Was it number 8 or number 6? Like 35-year-old bald guy, short guy, good defensive midfielder. But they were sitting back in a double pivot, and then they had they had like an attacking midfielder. I think it was Mofokeng in front of them, or he was at times joining Makopa in the press. But it's difficult to defend a midfield three like this. We're used to seeing a 2-1 or a 1-2. We're not used to seeing like a 1-1-1. So if I have a screenshot of that, I'll throw it up. But that's like something that Al Ahly does that I haven't seen so much in world football, and it makes it really difficult to defend against. So yeah, Imam Ashur really good running in midfield. I wrote, but that last pass sucks. And I've been, I think, harsh on Imam Ashur. People say, like he's so great. Nah, nah, nah. Me personally, for the amount of money that he was transferred for, and I know that's not his fault, I'm expecting more. Not just from his indiscipline off the pitch, where he's had problems this week fighting with his own teammates. He's had problems off the pitch fighting with security guards, literally, and being sentenced to 6 months in prison before they came to a financial compensation agreement. So indiscipline. Again, he missed like some of the AFCON because he was doing a somersault in training and hurt his neck. He seems like very immature, but on the pitch as well. That would be okay. We could excuse that if he was putting in performances on the pitch. I'm not saying he's been horrible, but I expected more, especially in the last pass, the last touch, the end product. I think has been pretty poor. It's been pretty disappointing. So yeah, the first half they canceled each other out. Pirates' chances came from distance. I thought it was pretty clear that Pirates were missing Tito. His creativity, his facilitation. Percy Tau came on in the 63rd minute of the second half to boost, and I would have loved to see him score. I think it would have been legendary if he scored. The kid from Sundowns comes back and kills Pirates in their own stadium. But he didn't start the match, and initially I was like, why didn't you start Percy Tau on his return to South Africa? But when I watched Tahir Mohamed Tahir, the right winger, that eventually, when Tau came on, he moved in up as a striker, but he was playing as a right winger. The amount of running he does off the ball, defensively, fulfilling his duties, I think it was the right decision to start him instead of Tau, because Tau is at an age where you're playing him for his genius in the attacking sense. You're not playing him because he's gonna defend well. And Pirates were expected to have most of the ball, and they did have most of the ball. So I think it was the right decision to bring him on around the 60th minute. So yeah, and then like the last 20, 30 minutes, I mean, the heat adds to pauses in the play. There's like drinking, cooling breaks. It didn't really allow for a fluid end to the game. Um, Hussein Shahat came on for an Ahly at the end, and he had a little bit of a chance. But again, what I noticed was that Pirates were struggling to break Al Ahly down centrally, like even from goal kicks, or the best thing that was working for them were the long balls or diagonal balls. And again, they do it well. We saw that against CR Belouizdad. But it's something that I'm going to have to monitor in future matches to see, can they break teams down the middle with short passing game, or is these long balls, is that going to be the modus operandi for Orlando Pirates? But overall, I think good result for both teams. Al Ahly have never won in South Africa. They continue that streak of never having won, but I think they were happy with 1 point. They're still dealing with some players that are just recovering from injury, or that have recently recovered, or some players are still out. And again, it was difficult conditions playing in that heat, and and I think Pirates were happy with that as well. They proved that they can hang with the big boys. They can put the African champions under pressure at home, and I think everybody was happy with a draw. I didn't watch any of Manyama Union against Raja, and this is the second time I miss a Raja match. So my pledge for the third match is to watch Raja Casablanca. Moving on to Stade d'Abidjan against CR Belouizdad, I watched that. Stade d'Abidjan, remember we talked about their coach. He's like 26 years old or 27 years old. He's a Frenchman. He's been hyped up in France a lot, and I was really excited to watch his side play and see, like, is this a new Mokwena? Is this a new young genius that's, cutting his teeth in Africa? First of all, I noticed that he wasn't on the touchline, which means he doesn't have his coaching badges. So he has to coach from the stands. And that's always difficult. You can't make as much adjustments on the pitch. But I think it's a situation that his side are used to. Um I could see like some parts of his game where like he's like they clearly work on their set pieces. Like before they take a corner kick, they'll do a sign, an X or something like that. They'll do some kind of like running. It's they clearly work on the set pieces, which is something that's good. What else can I say about Stade d'Abidjan? Honestly, not much. Roger Saleh is still a good player, still dangerous. Um, the midfielder Aka, very combative. The goalkeeper Drissa Bamba, I thought had a good game as well after giving up four against Al Ahly. But overall, like I watched Sagrada Esperança and Esperance Tunis, and I said these two teams are not on the same level. I had the same feeling with Stade d'Abidjan and CR Belouizdad. CR Belouizdad didn't respect them. They come when you play away from home in the African Champions League, you're going to play usually like a 4-3-3, like some kind of balanced midfield with a real defensive midfielder. They come with a 4-2-3-1 and the two in the double pivot. I mean, neither of them are defensive midfielders. They're both eights. One of them can even play as a 10. And so it's a very extremely attacking lineup for CR Belouizdad, which makes me think they don't. On top of that, they play an extremely attacking fullback, Nofil Khasef, as a left back. So they had no respect for Stade d'Abidjan's ability to hurt them. And CRB start the game on the front foot in Abidjan. And they had like early chances, like Islam Belkhir had a chance in the 7th minute that should have been a goal. And they just squandered it. And that's going to be my criticism of CRB is that their wingers in particular, Mazian and Belkhir, very good dribblers, amongst the best on the African continent, but their end product is very poor as well, worse than Imam Ashur's. um, One thing I'll say is that Kaniso Mayo is coming along very, very well for CR Belouizdad. He played this game as like a number 10, as a second striker, and he was really good. And he's been good for the last 3 weeks. And I think he's slowly but surely carving out his own place for the Algerian club. Um, and at the beginning of the second half, the formation started to show its limitations, the 4-2-3-1. And because you just threw on a bunch of attacking players, they were not really tracking back. And the first 10-15 minutes were extremely chaotic. And the coach Amrani did a good thing in bringing on Jacques Mbe, the Cameroonian midfielder, who is a defensive midfielder, and he took out one of the Algerian wingers, Belkhir, and that really balanced CRB. And immediately after that, CRB dominated again. It was only from the 45th minute to the 60th minute or 56th minute or something like that. Those were the only 10 minutes where Stade d'Abidjan looked like the better side in that game. And then yeah, the striker Ayman Mahyous, who was playing instead of Islam Slimani, who usually starts for CRB, he was great. And he's on loan from a Swiss club. And he was, I don't know if you guys remember the African Nations Championship, the Chan in Algeria. He was the leading scorer in that competition. Good striker. At times he can be clumsy though, but man, he was man of the match in this match. He was really, really good. And not just good, he was like not clumsy at all. It's like some of the things he was doing, flicking up with one foot, hitting on the volley like a 30-yard crossfield pass, and even his goal, very nifty feet, which is something that's, in my opinion, uncharacteristic for Mahyous. Like he receives the ball from, I think it was Belkhir, or no, from Mizian, one of the wingers that has little end product, and just nifty feet, just boom, boom. Controls with the right foot, finishes with the left foot. Goalkeeper, before he even can react, the ball's almost in the back of the net. So great game by Mahyous. And then the last point I'll make is the last 10 minutes of this match. I'm watching and I'm going, man, if Algerian clubs have a lead with 5 to 10 minutes to go, they're the worst to play against, especially Algerian defenders, because they're so aggressive. They have absolutely no qualms about kicking the ball 70 yards down the pitch. They're not trying to, be cute and try to pass the ball out, in possession, up and down, matriculate up and down. They're just gonna boot it down, and then they're gonna scream about a cramp for 5 minutes, and they just know how to close out matches. Algerian defenders do. That's my final note. But yeah, overall, Stade d'Abidjan and Sagrada Esperança do not look like two clubs that should be in this competition, in my opinion. They should be in the CAF Confederations Cup. They're completely outclassed. MC of Algiers versus Young Africans. I'm taking too long on these. Young Africans, I only watched the second half of this match. Young Africans created nothing. It was 50-50 possession, but 16-3 shots total for Mouloudia of Algiers. I was surprised that Mouloudia played with three grinders in midfield. That's what I expected CR Belouizdad to do in Abidjan, but at home I wanted Mouloudia to play with more creative players like El Arbi Tabti, for example, who we spoke about last time. But he came on anyways because the Ivorian midfielder Zugrana, who we talked about as being, one of the top talents on the continent, he went down with an early knee injury. I hope it's not long term, but Tepti replaced him, and Mouloudia looked balanced after that. Um, but Mouloudia played with like three almost out and out strikers. They play a 4-3-3, and the three up top are out and out strikers. They're not wingers, they're not like for example, Pirates will play, with like a Saleng or Nkota and Mofo Kang over here. Like those are clearly wingers, even though they can run past Machopa. Mouloudia is like it's like three strikers. Naiji is a striker, Indy Delor is a striker, and then Taib Miziani is striker, winger, forward player, but they can also play Bayezid over there. It's almost more like Sundowns, where they'll have like Shalulile, Rainers, and then Ribeiro, right? Those are strikers, right? Ribeiro, I understand can play like a little bit deeper, but um, and so that 4-3-3 is it's not very fluid in my opinion. It's not very smooth. Sometimes it feels like he's just trying to get as many strikers on as he can because Mouloudia struggled to score goals. So yeah, it feels a little bit disjointed, and they did struggle to score goals here. The two goals that they won the match with, they came very, very late, and they came from set pieces. So one of them just a long 40-yard long cross into the box that the Algerian captain Ayoub Abdellaoui gets a head on and he scores with. And then the other one is another set piece that Sofiane Bayezid gets on the end of and he scores with almost the final kick of the match. So 2-0. Good victory for Mouloudia of Algiers, who did it without their fans. And like I'm gonna stress this. Mouloudia of Algiers fans are nuts. They're gonna be probably the best, along with the Casablanca clubs, the best set of fans in this competition. So they're playing their first two matches of the group stages without any fans because they got in trouble for crowd trouble, in the qualifying stages of this competition. When they get their fans back for the third and final match day of the group stage, I think it's gonna make even more of a difference. So yeah, important win. They just have to play one more group stage match without any fans in a good place with 4 points. And now they have hugely important doubleheader with Al Hilal coming up home and away. FAR Rabat against Mamelodi Sundowns. I watched this, I think the first half of this one. Um, I was surprised to see Sundowns had more possession in the first half when I was looking at the statistics after. Because it didn't seem that way when I was watching the match. It seemed way more balanced, like 50-50. And this one kind of felt like, I wrote here, tight battles like Mexican boxers. I don't know if you guys know about boxing. I'm not a big boxing guy, but what I read from the analysts and stuff, they say Mexican boxers, they like to step in close quarters and just trade, like hard punches, body blows, uppercuts, and they're fighting from close quarters. And that's what it sort of felt like to me. It's like not a lot of things into space when you're playing against FAR Rabat or Raja Casablanca or, yeah, especially those two clubs. They're playing between the attacking line and the defending line. They're not playing balls over. They're not playing balls, they're not, the game's not stretched out. You're really like short passes and the battle is there, trying to like win interceptions, tackles, and so on and so forth. But I really like a lot of FAR Rabat's players. They remind me of Raja. I think none are probably world class or exceptional, but they're all very good. Like Hidemet was good, Bash was good, Etwer Khan was good, all in midfield. Very, 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 very impressed by them all. Um, they're all good. They're all like 7 or 8 out of 10 players. They have like no weaknesses. Um, Sundowns, I was impressed with the new center back, the young kid Koza. He seems like the real deal in defense. Sundowns were lucky to not concede a penalty in the first half with Aubrey Medib. I think that was a clear cut penalty. Um, I did watch just the goals in the second half. I didn't watch the entire second half, and I saw that Ikram Rainer's goal was 2 touches. It was Ronwen Williams with a beautiful, similar to Tumalen Kune, some of that distribution. Beautiful boot, and then Rainer's on the volley, half volley uh, scores. And that is a more direct Sundowns, right? We wanted Sundowns to be more direct. That is a form. That is what people were telling me Sundowns were going to be. And what a great signing he's been, by the way. Ikram Rainers, man. What is he at? Like 9, 10 goals already now? Um, great player. I'm excited to watch him more with Bafana now. And then even FAR Rabat, I mean, great build-up play for the equalizer. And again, those are the kinds of goals that they and Raja seem to score. Like they seem to score very well constructed goals. Um, So yeah, Hirimet's with the goal, even though he should have been sent off probably. But yeah, Modiba should have probably conceded a penalty. So we're not going to talk about the refereeing. A good match between Rabat and Sundowns. I think both sides are happy with where they're at. Sundowns have 2 points, or yeah, 2 points, and Rabat have four. Djoliba versus Pyramids was a little bit of a boring match. I wanted to watch Djoliba play at home because I heard that they were the people's club, that they were a popular club, and I was expecting, to watch a great turnout, you know, fans and stadiums in Mali, and that wasn't the case. So I was disappointed with the fan turnout in Bamako. Um, I was interested to see if Pyramids could be as dominant as they were against Sagrada Esperança, where they won 4-1 or 5-1 in Cairo, but they weren't. I mean, the first half shots off target, sorry, were 5-3. No shots on target for either side. Possession was about 50-50. And Pyramids came into this match without Ibrahim Adil, who was probably the best player of the first round of the CAF Champions League. They didn't have Fiston Mayele, their star Congolese striker. They didn't have Blati Toure, the Burkinabe midfielder, and a few other players were injured as well. So I think they were not as dominant, but they came into this match a little bit injured. They weren't expecting to be. They didn't want to be, really. And I think Djoliba were actually overall the better side. They created a lot of chances, and they have that thing about them. Look, Djoliba had no one over the age of 25 on the pitch, and Pyramids had no one under the age of 26 on the pitch. I think Pyramids' goalkeeper was 41 years old, and Djoliba's striker was 17 years old. And you could almost, it reflected in the styles of play. Djoliba played like carefree, energetic, but also reckless. Like some of the half chances that they had should have been real chances, but because they just swung at the ball and they just kicked it over, like 2 meters above the goal, like a more seasoned or experienced striker would have brought it under control and tested the goalkeeper, for example. So Djoliba played like they were young, and Pyramids played like they were old. Pyramids' average age was 31, and Djoliba's 21. So, yeah, but it wasn't a very good match either. It was quite boring. No real goal scoring opportunities for either side. And then finally, El Hilal versus Mazembe, I thought was maybe one of the best games of the round, and the match was played in Mauritania. Um, I'm gonna try to get to one of those matches in Mauritania before the season is over. I really want to do that. Mazembe, by the way, they got to play with the players that they signed. They're Congolese players that remember they had signed some Congolese and some foreign players, but they couldn't register them in this competition because FIFA had banned them from doing so. And then things changed about a week ago, and now they can play with the Congolese players that they signed in this competition. So a few of them made their debuts in this competition off the bench. But again, like my thing with that was, okay, are we going to see an increase in attacking talent? Because they lost a lot of it over the summer, and I thought maybe they replaced them, but we haven't seen them yet because they were banned from playing them on the pitch, and this was a chance to see that. But I thought again there was a lack of attacking talent, and the only player that was an exception to that is Oscar Cabuit, who is slowly but surely looking like one of the best players in this competition. Man, like he came out with like this new thing I had never seen him do before, where he cuts in and hits it with he's right-footed, but he hits it with his left foot from a distance. And in the 23rd minute, he does it, and Issa Fofana tips it over, and then he equalizes in the 64th minute with the exact same way, cutting in and hitting it with the left foot. He's a really good player, just 19 years old. I would be shocked if he's not in Europe either in the winter or next summer for millions and millions of pounds. He's really, really good. Um, Other than that, I was more impressed. I think it was a 50-50 match. So Mazembe do that thing where, again, with young sides like Djoliba, like Mazembe, sometimes they're so carefree that they're just as good away from home as they are at home. And I think that's going to be the case with Mazembe. And I think El Hilal don't really have a home advantage because they're playing in neutral territory as well. So it seemed like a 50-50 match. But I would just give the slight advantage to El Hilal. Um, the goal came from a pass from Abderraouf Yacoub Omar. He sets up Mohamed Abderrahman with a beautiful pass. And Mohamed Abderrahman, very experienced striker, Al Gharbal, very mobile striker. That's what I like about him as well. He's not the tallest or the strongest, but he can get in behind defenders. That's something that, for example, maybe Far Rabat are missing. And he gets in, nicks the ball right before the TP Mazembe goalkeeper clashes into him. And here Alioune Fatiev sort of hyped up as, a talented young goalkeeper, 25 years old from TP Mazembe. But that's a horrible tackle. Like, it was clear that Mohamed Abdelrahman was going to get there before him. He should have cut it out. He's lucky he didn't get sent off. He should have did something else, but he tackles him. I don't know how he wasn't sent off. And Mohamed Abdelrahman converts the penalty, and Al Hilal are winning 1-0. Like I said, Kabwit equalizes with his left foot in the 64th minute. And then the last 10-15 minutes, I thought Al Hilal started to put the pressure on. They bring in Muzamil, who had the winning goal last time. And they're just trying to pepper Mazembe, and it finally the breakthrough comes in through Jean-Claude Giroud Migisha, another young talent, just 20 years old from Burundi. Like, who's scouting for Al Hilal, bringing in Issa Fofana, Adama Koulibaly, or is that Adama Koulibaly? I forget his first name always, but Koulibaly, the Messi, the Malian Messi, Issa Fofana, Giroud Mugisha. Even Al-Hajj Madiki is a good signing, but that's not a difficult scouting job because he had played, I think, in the Chan, and he had played in the Moroccan Butola and stuff. But these other kids that are 18, 19, 20 years old, it seems like they're hitting on every single one of them. And Giroud Mugisha, just 3 touches, great pass from Walidi and Khidr in midfield. They call him Pogba, and this seemed like a pass from Pogba. And Giroud Mugisha just smacks the ball right past Fatih for the 2-1 victory in the final minutes of the match. Big result for Al Ahly. Impressed with Mazembe. They showed energy, they showed fight as we expected them to. And they aren't scared to play away from home. That's what I like about Mazembe. And I think they're definitely still in this, even though they only have 1 point now, they're definitely still in it. Especially as they have that home field advantage in Lubumbashi. But one final thing I'll say about Al Hilal before we finish this video, as we're going on almost 40 minutes. Wow. Their vertical play has been what's been on display so far. Every single one of their four goals, they've attacked with a lot of speed. So, and some of that has come from the passing of their midfield players like Walidin Khidr Pogba or Abdurrauf Yaqub Omar. Go look at those passes that they had for these 2 goals against Mazembe, or even for Yasser Muzamil's goal, the second one against Young Africans, or even when Koulibaly scored as well. They're all long balls, and Al Hilal are taking advantage of the opposition in transition with speed. The speed of their attacking players, and the passing of their midfield players is really what's getting them these 4 goals in the first 2 rounds of the match. So I think if you're scouting against Al Hilal, like the next team that plays against them, which is going to be Mouloudia of Algiers, what you have to be wary of is these vertical passes into space for these pacey attacking players that are so dangerous for Al Hilal, because it's all on paper. That's how they've scored every single one of their 4 goals. A lot of quality in attack as well to finish them, but the passing and the pace is a real problem. Anyways, that was match day 2. Like I said, nothing really to write home about. I think we learned a lot about a lot of sides. We learned that some sides like Sagrada Esperança probably don't deserve to be in this competition. Stade d'Abidjan probably have a long ways to go as well. We learned that Pirates are for real. They can hang with the big boys. We learned a few different things. Al Hilal are for real as well. But it wasn't an exciting round of matches. And I'm more excited really now for the 3rd and 4th match is interesting because like we talked about for the AFCON qualifiers, when you have a doubleheader, like you're going to play home and away against one team. It's all about coaching changes. So this is going to be a big test for the coaches coming up. So yeah, excited to see how the coaches do in the 3rd and 4th match day. Anyways, we're going to leave it there because we're nearly going on 40 minutes. Thank you for watching another episode of the African Football Roundup on the African 5-Side Podcast.